Everybody to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us this episode to stay curious. Today beside me is Tom Usciak, outstanding freelance space photographer. Tom, welcome again to
Nice
space.
to be back.
Well, we're glad to have you back. Of course, he's one of the two Usciak brothers, Mark and Tom, that have been launch photographers for, you don't like to think of it this way, but 50 years you've been chasing rockets and photographing them. How are you?
Good.
Good. You and your brother were here to see the launch. He was covering it. We've shared some of his pictures, like this beautiful launch photo behind me here. Actually, I think that one might be yours you took from
Right.
9 miles away.
From the condo the other night. Again, I want to take the opportunity to thank William Whiting for allowing our group to come up to his residence on the fifth floor. It was a beautiful view.
Had a great time, Bill. Thank you for your hospitality, and we apparently behaved ourselves because he's invited us back, Tom. So
we were on our best behavior.
That's good. That's good. Well, we're going to have a program that is really going to be a great history program. I'm anxious to hear about. It's kind of the evolution of the NASA press centers that Tom was a member of as a teenager back in the 1970s. And so we're going to talk about that. But first, we wanted to kind of set the tone a little bit with where you're from and how did you get involved in photographing space things as a freelancer? Who'd you work for?
Well, I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, born, raised there. I currently live in a little suburb of Lancaster called Millersville. I'm married. I have a grown daughter and two grandchildren. I keep busy with them.
Of course.
My first mission I covered was Apollo 15 in 1971 as a college newspaper journalist. And I think I was past my teenage years, and I was actually 20.
All right. Okay.
The big 2-0 when I did that. So yeah, it was very interesting, and I always wanted to do that. And my wife suggested that I go over to the college newspaper because we were both taking summer courses at Millersville University. It's called Millersville State College then, and we went over and we talked to the student faculty advisor for the publications. She was all for it, especially when we told her it wouldn't cost the school anything.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Oh, well, we're going to put you in the newspaper then." And being the fact that it was summer and there wasn't a lot going on campus, we took 3 pages of the 4 or 5 of that newspaper for the story on covering Apollo 15.
Oh, wow.
So,
and celebrated that 52 years ago.
And then we started making contacts. We were with the college through the end of the Apollo program. Mark worked at the college with me. We worked for student services. So that allowed us to continue to be affiliated with the college and allowed us to be able to go down there for them. And then we just started making contacts during that gap between Apollo and ASTP and Skylab and all that. I usually lump that together as the Apollo era.
Mm-hmm.
Until Space Shuttle in 1981, we started making contacts with different publications, and it just grew from there.
Who are some of those publications that you've been printed in?
Aviation Space Magazine, Air Force Magazine, our local TV station we supplied imagery to, more books, a lot of books. Ray Seddon's book was our most recent.
How about a plug
book.
through our friend JL that watched the launch with us there?
JL Pickering's books and JL and John Bisney's books.
These are excellent hardcover books that you'll see rarely seen photographs, and you and your brother are featured in the Apollo 1 and the Shuttle 1.
The Apollo 1, the Apollo 11 one, and the Space Shuttle, the early flights covering.
That's J.L. Pickering and
4.
John Bisney. You want to look their books up on Amazon there. You had a successful lab in this is the Philadelphia area, basically, where you live, sort of.
I live 60 miles
So,
west of Philadelphia.
So you had a big lab, did a lot of wedding photographers come there, a very professional lab.
I was a partner and then an owner in what we call a full-service professional photo lab, which means our clientele was basically photographic resellers.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me the ability to do all the photo work that we did for the different publications. We got to basically keep it in house.
Yes.
So I didn't have to send it out, rely on other people to do it. From the time I put the roll of film in the camera, and in that days it was film.
Yes, absolutely.
Until I was delivering the final product, whether it was print, transparencies, slides, and then later on, as time went on, digital files to whoever our clients were.
Well, I want Tom to kind of set where he came from as a professional photographer, because you're going to see some great images of the good old days in the press corps, the film, the typewriters, and so forth in there. So, very, very interesting. And your brother's still an active freelancer. You've kind of retired out of it, haven't you?
Pretty much so, yes.
Yeah, good. It's kind of good to not have to. It's good to watch little brother run around and jump through hoops and then look at his pictures and say, gee, I didn't have to go through all that out there. Because a lot of the media, and particularly me being myself in the media, photographers weren't treated as well as the written word people sometimes. They're just kind of like, okay, you guys go over there and stand in the corner until where the excitement starts and all. So a lot of hurry up and wait. But your VIP... around VIPs, having a lot of fun, and we're going to talk about some of that here. So I believe you.
Yes.
We were going to go get ready here to get into our program.
Well, before we do, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of my brother and myself to present you with this check, which covers the additional microphone that we have in the studio here now, so everyone can hear Marty as good as he can hear you.
Well, thank you.
We're very happy to do it. That's the way we like to support the museum with
thanks a lot,
things that carry on.
Yeah, he's not too happy about, but after 2 years, I finally coaxed him to be my on-air buddy, too. He's been a fabulous partner in this Stay Curious. And thank you, Vicki, also. Your wife, I know, supports everything you do, and I've met her several times, and a delightful lady, and I'm glad that she supports our American Space Museum. So thank you for that, buying us a new Yeti microphone here so we can hear Marty. And Marty, how we doing today? We hadn't said hi to you. You were out to Space Center today, I understand.
Yeah, sure were. We saw, Tony Antonelli, excellent presentation. That's astronaut Tony Antonelli.
Great.
Very good. Yeah, really had a good time out there.
I'm sure everybody was bundled, or the locals were bundled up there like they were in Antarctica, probably. Marty, I know, the locals here, it's cold. It's like 65 degrees out, folks. And
yeah, Nick was bundled up.
Was he Nick Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay. It's we're having a little cold spell here, but that don't in our 60s for the high. It's going to get down to the 50s tonight.
Oh boy, it was 29 at home last night. When I checked before we came in here, I checked at lunchtime, and it was 39 in Lancaster.
Well, one other comment about Tom and Vicki, get your brother to buy you lunch to help out here too with this. That these are the type of people that we are so happy that have been attracted to the American Space Museum, and we're glad that you're one of them watching us today. Please tell your friends that if they like space and astronomy, that we provide what we feel is some content that nobody else is providing, like on-air live interviews with newsmakers and VIPs of the space program. We had Nick Thomas in here this week. He's the astronaut wrangler that for 35 years has been a communicator out at the Space Center. We just sat down with L in space, L on space. Ellie on space, video podcaster. That we'll have a program on that. But Tom, it's so important that we have friends like your brother and all of these people that have found the American Space Museum and see what we want to do is preserve the birth and achievements of the American space program here where it began in Brevard County.
You have amazing artifacts in here. I see something new each time that I missed the previous time.
Absolutely. So, well, let's get on with our little program today. We'd like to say that Artemis got off in good shape there. Mr. Chris Callie, we didn't hear from you during the launch, but this is his beautiful artwork with your little brother's Artemis photograph featured there. And you can own this poster by going to going to CallieSpaceArt.com, CALLE spaceart.com. But there's the real deal, blasting off pad 39B, which we mentioned 49 years earlier. You photographed the Skylab's last crewed mission going up there. So this is your photo taken from about 9 miles away with a pretty good telephoto lens.
That's the press site. That's Mark's.
Oh, that's Mark's from the press site? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is way too close from where we were.
That's from Titusville.
Okay.
About 9-10 miles away.
Yep, about 9 miles away. And then there is, oh, yeah. Well, I'm going the wrong way there. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, but there's your shot. That's your brother's shot, and this is your shot. 49 years apart. How cool is that?
How about that? Yeah.
So
amazing.
And then this is my shot with about a 1200 millimeter lens. Actually, it's a Meade ETX90 that I cannibalized. The launch gantry's flipped around there, if you notice that. And away we go. So, Tom's going to talk about the news centers through 50 years of history. Take it away, Mr. Usciak.
Well, let's hop in the time tunnel here and go back to April 1972. That was this was my second time there. This was Mark's first time. But the Apollo News Center was not on the grounds of the Kennedy Space Center. It was in Cocoa Beach, North Atlantic Avenue, in that building there, right across the street from the Holiday Inn. The building is still there. From what I understand, it looks the same from the outside. I think it's a different paint job. But it is a fitness center currently, from what I've been told. I haven't been down there to see, but Marty's agreeing with me here that it's a fitness center. So that's what it looked like, a 2-story building, and it was well occupied. This is right on the first level. When you went in, you can see in the back there's the Apollo 16 mission patch on the wall there. And this is one of your first stops. This is where you went in, and back then, all of the press accreditation for Apollo missions went through Washington, and your sponsoring publication,
Washington, D.C.,
NASA headquarters. Your publication or whoever you were working for would send a letter to them. No emails, no this. I mean, it was actually done on a typewriter, letter sent to an address there in Washington, and they sent you back a little slip of paper and a list of information as far as phone numbers, who to contact, how to go about getting your badge. So when you would go into the news center down there, depending on your last name, you would go into the line there. And I mean, they had lots of people. They had like 2,800 press coming in there over a period of a few days before the launch. You would present that slip of paper and an ID. One ID, then driver's license worked. I mean, you didn't have to have more than one. And you were given your badge and then went about your business.
And there you got the alphabetical last name signs up there.
So we were in the last row there from the heart of Z's.
Yeah, you've been used to that.
with
Just
the
go,
U's.
go to the end of the line there
yeah.
with the U in there.
Absolutely.
This is another inside look.
Well, this is what they call it. They call it the query desk.
Query.
QUERY desk. And on the wall but there was an easel in the background there. You can see it has a very early artist conception of the space shuttle. Space shuttle was just being proposed, and
Above the guy standing up on the right, Marty.
Toward the
I'll show you that.
well, yeah. Well, there's a poster of it there in the back there in the upper right,
Right there.
right there. Yeah, and that's it was right around this time that NASA was pitching the program and trying to get it funded in Congress, and they did finally do that.
50 years ago in
and so
April.
this is where people would come and ask questions, mission-specific questions. A gentleman there behind the desk with dark hair and glasses, his name was Bob Gordon, and he was a very, very good and well-informed public affairs officer who could answer practically any question you would come up with.
But Tom, talk about that and talk about that.
Okay, well, there we actually have a rotary, and we'll see this more in down the road here in some other pictures, but we had a rotary telephone there and a typewriter, which looks like a IBM Selectric typewriter back there.
Ever.
Yeah, in the corner where actually things were typed and phone calls, numbers were dialed. And
So you're from out of town, like all these media. How many were like there? 100, 200?
You mean press
yeah.
for Apollo 16, for instance? Oh, there was 25 to 2,800.
25. So this guy's fielding questions everywhere from where do I stand to where's a good place to eat.
Yeah, that, and if they wanted to try to arrange interviews with people,
Gotcha.
they would schedule that through those people there.
Yeah, Marty.
Or, let me get my arrow here. I think we have this in the museum. Where'd it go? Right there.
Yeah, that we do have we have a model of that shuttle here in our museum.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. That's good. We got some other old pictures here to show you.
Well, now there's a person that might be recognized to some of our older viewers in the yellow shirt there. That's Jules Bergman
Standing up on the left, Marty.
from
Jules Bergman.
ABC News, who was a longtime space reporter for that network. And the gentleman sitting at the desk there with his hand up to his mouth is Les Gaver. And he's one of the two people that were most influential with us in our photography times at Kennedy Space Center. Les Gaver was from Washington. He was what they called, I think his title was audiovisual chief of the agency. He was in charge of coordinating all the activities, and he would come down there before the mission, and he would coordinate the press conferences and the recordings of everything like that. And then when the flight was over, he'd just move on to the next stop, which was Houston, where the flight was controlled from, and then back to Washington. And
Les there with his briefcase. People don't carry briefcases around either like they used to.
I don't see too many of them. And he was one that taught me helped me learn how to catalog and display photographs. He had one of these racks that would spin around, and I think they had one at Kennedy too, at the News Center. And you would go through, and these pictures would be like in these plastic inserts, and you would flip them back and forth, and they'd have numbers on it. And if you wanted to get that photograph, you would write down numbers. Be people in there filling out sheets and stuff like that, turning them in. But that the first time we saw that was in Washington, and then saw it at the other centers. But that gentleman was more recently. Well, actually, he was there during Apollo too. That's Ed Harrison. His title was Photographic Coordinator, NASA PAO KSC. He's the one that set up remote cameras. He's the one that would find out if there was a good shot. He would contact people and say, hey, there's going to be a good shot coming up. And he would get the word out to the local reporters and do that. And he opened up camera sites other than the press site for the space shuttle program. And he just knew what was going on. He was the guy that the photographers went to, where like the writers and things would go to people like Dick Young or Hugh Harris or someone like that.
Walter Sullivan.
Eddie took care of the video and film people.
Marty's enjoying that. Point out what you pointed out there, Marty. Look at the lady there. She obviously doesn't want her picture made, though she looks pretty. She's got a push button dial phone there, an orange. And what do you think that black thing is, Mark? Oh, that's dial. Okay, yeah, that's a dial.
Intercom.
Oh, yeah. And the black thing, yeah, go ahead.
Florida grapefruit.
Florida grapefruit. And what's the black thing?
I don't know.
I bet it's a dictaphone laying there. Could be a dictation machine there. All right, well, let's look at this throwback Thursday for history. All right,
throwback Thursday. Yeah, we're up there now. We see reel-to-reel tape recorders.
This is radio.
Radio guys were in here, and they would do their work from in there. They would record their spots that would play on the hour, and they would send them they would actually broadcast from there. I think they had the capacity to broadcast from there.
Well, as where we depend on your news, you're going to see the modern news centers, of course,
right.
Wi-Fi. AT&T phone lines were so critical here. Yeah. And before any event like this, I'm sure the telephone people were in there adding additional lines and checking them.
Absolutely. You could do that. And you could also, at the press site, you could make arrangements to have a spot in the bleachers, the grandstand, which is no longer there. And you could get you could get your own private telephone at your expense set up there by, I think it was, what was it called then? Southern Bell? I think Southern Bell was the name of the company.
Because all communications went through a piece of copper wire.
Yeah, it was.
And when I was involved with the Associated Press, we sent our photographs, stuck them in a fax machine. We didn't call it that then, about the size of a bread box, and stuck them in there, and they were scanned and went across the wire. But to do that, you had to literally schedule your photograph like an airplane on a runway. You know, this is Columbus, Ohio AP. We've got Woody Hayes going crazy over a touchdown, you know, because I covered Ohio State football. So was that like that with this situation in the
wire services, the photo wires worked in a different room, and I believe they had, well, you used to see things that said AP wire photo, you know, or
it literally came across a wire.
Yeah, it literally did. Yes.
Here's the best shot there we were looking at earlier there. Talk about old school, Marty. There you got a Royal typewriter, ashtray filled to the brim, rotary dial phone. What hasn't changed in that picture in 50 years, Marty?
Wait a minute, did you say ashtray? Because the ashtray's out there also.
I said ashtray. Okay. Yeah, point it out there. People might not know what these things are. If you're under 30, you probably don't know what an ashtray looks like. There's an ashtray. But what hasn't changed in 50 years, Marty, in this picture?
Coca-Cola can.
There you go. The Coca-Cola can sitting right there. Nice, comfortable metal chairs to sit on all day.
Yeah. But what also changed, I had noticed all the tables and chairs and desks we're still using today.
Yeah. Tables, chairs, desks. Yeah. And we want to point out these are all your photographs.
No, well, some are, some aren't, and I was going to get to that as we went on down the road here. Most of the photos of the Apollo News Center I got courtesy of our friend J.L. Pickering.
Oh, okay.
He and I went down to Atlanta a few years ago now, and went through the archives down there and they had photos like this down there, and he had them scanned. And I remember him getting those photos, and I asked him to send those to me. We really didn't take that many pictures ourselves in the new center. We really weren't in it that much as far as, because you were in a bus more or less, being bused back and forth to the press site, because that's where things were, and the press site wasn't at the the press building. Press headquarters wasn't at the press site at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So we found ourselves on buses a lot.
But what's going on here?
Well, this is a pre-launch press conference. This is on the second floor of the news center there in Cocoa Beach, and I think it's a pre. But we see, like, there's Deke Slayton's in there, and
Rocco
Petrone. I see, it looks like Walt Caprian, launch director.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a pre. This is a pre-launch.
But that's
pre-launch
where
press
the
conference.
press conferences were held there. And
Right.
they had the special studio lights set up and all that sort of stuff in there back in the day.
And then right across the street, and that building is probably still there. It looks familiar.
Back to Cocoa Beach.
Yeah,
and
back
the
in
press
Cocoa
center.
Beach. That's where they had headquartered and marshaled out all of the VIPs, guests, and dependents of the media, and VIPs too. And what they were doing there was getting on the bus to have a bus tour of the Space Center.
We'll throw back again for to look at when we was young.
Oh yeah, yeah. There we were at an Apollo launch. Our good friend who still built some of the remote camera equipment that's still sitting outside the fence today at Pad B, Steve Nolte.
Marty, that's Steve Nolte in the white shirt there.
From left to right.
And we interviewed him. On
Yeah,
Stay
he was
Curious.
on here. Of course, that's yours truly there in the second.
Use your arrow there, Marty. Please. You're Steve Nolte's there in the white shirt. That's you. Yeah, there's Steve. You're next. Okay.
And that's our friend Larry Cartwright, who was with us he's a college friend of mine who worked with us. He worked for his college paper, York Spartan, off and on. And then last but not least, his little brother.
Mark. All right. And you said that's 17 behind you?
That's 16.
Oh,
That's
okay.
16.
Center 5 is covered up there, you notice. There's a rocket under all that
MSS.
MSS.
Mobile service structure.
Right. And then the red is called the LUT, right, Marty?
Yeah.
The Launch Umbilical Tower. All right.
And then just to flash back here a little bit, 50 years ago, this is a shot from one of Steve Nolte's shots of the launch of Apollo 17 from the press site.
December 6, 1972, our last trip to the moon. And we'll be celebrating that next month, 50-year
50 years,
anniversary.
yeah.
And we've apparently got an unmanned spaceship headed to the moon.
Headed there
so
right
it's all
now.
good.
So now let's move on to the space shuttle era and what was lovingly called the dome. Now, the dome had a little bit of a history before it was used for the
This
NASA
is the press site now for the shuttle.
we
It's
are
called
now
the
at the
dome.
press site. It moved out of Cocoa Beach and decided to set up shop headquarters on the site where everything was happening. Good choice. And
Yeah, right.
that dome, if I could show you here on this picture, was actually in use before at
That's
third
our-
century America.
Yeah, that's our autograph board of celebrities that have autographed that.
And you can see all the domes there. I'm not one of those in this picture became that dome back there. I don't know which one it was. I don't think
You got
it
the
was.
Saturn V right here.
Mhm.
That's out there at the Saturn V Center, was exposed for years to the elements. And then you've got the bicentennial symbol is on the VAB, and you see all the domes there. Marty, you were working out there then. What do you remember about that, if anything?
Not a whole lot other than.
Turn your mic on there.
Sorry about that. I don't remember a whole lot about it.
All right.
Pad B is in the picture. Right there is where Artemis took off from the other night.
Mhm.
Right? That little white raised
Yeah,
area.
the people that saw it from the Launch Control Center, like Mike Leinbach, who I talked to, it was more of an experience for them than they felt it in their chest. They felt it. It was really, Marty and I were talking about that. It wasn't very dynamic over here 9 miles away. But when you were 3 miles away, apparently it was, Mike Leinbach said it was awesome and bigger and brighter than any shuttle launch. He was very impressed. But so let's go inside this building, and
Well, yeah, we're right inside the dome. That was right near the just a general information desk. That there was usually sometimes it was rare that there were two people there. Usually there was only one, so maybe they were just chatting or whatever. But it was sort of like the schedule that now they do everything with email. They send you like 10 emails a day.
here you take a Sharpie and a white piece of paper and Scotch tape and put it on the door.
Right. It says remote pickups at 1:30. Meeting. I don't know why I can't read what it says underneath there, but your RSS rollback times there. Astronaut crew arrival. The SLF is there.
We'll announce on PA system.
Right. Remote camera survey and remote camera setup. Now, what that means was, what they used to do was 2 days before the launch, they would take the photographers out and let them figure out where they want to be, and they would go out there and hammer stakes into the ground. We said, why not just take our tripods out there and put them there? And well, they said, well, we don't want to be responsible for something that's out there that long. I said, I'll tell you one thing. I got to trust the people that I got to know and work with down there. I never even gave it a thought that one of those guys somebody would steal someone else's equipment. I said, the community was small. The photographers, especially the remote photographers, knew each other. Many of them I still in touch with today, like Joe Marino, who stopped by at the Shuttle Fest last year. I was just texting with him last night. So, and there's a lot of others.
Yeah, camera people, telescope people. They're not thieves. They like you say, you just kind of assume it's a safe haven.
Right. So then, by putting our tripods out there, then the next day we didn't have to go out there with these huge, and I mean we had huge tripods. Not the small ones like you see today, because the hardware back then was bigger and more cumbersome and needed some more support. And then we would just go back and mount the camera on the tripod and set it up.
There you get the feeling you're in a dome.
Yeah, this is sort of standing where you walk in and the front door there, and you're looking toward the back, and that's where the working area for the reporters was. Now computers were in there now, but there were still some typewriters. I remember a couple of the old timers, guys that were around in the Apollo days. They would be still sitting up there typing, and then they'd be faxing things and that. But eventually, everyone moved to the computers. But it was, and the acoustics in there.
Oh yeah, but that was interesting.
Well, a friend of mine who worked for Florida Today told me that if you were in the right position, two people in the right position, just happened to be in the right position, you could hear conversations from across the room. Now, I never experienced that, but I certainly believe that with the way sound bounces around and things like that, that could have happened. This was like we saw the query desk at Cocoa Beach. This is what it was at the dome. You can see how the roof of the dome is just basically fastened around the walls and that there, and some identifiable people that some of the older folks from the past might recognize as the lady sitting at the desk there with her hand up to her chin. That is Diana Bowles. She was sort of like the news center coordinator. She's the one that kept everything moving in there. The gentleman in the tie there with his hands on his hip, his name was Rocky Robb. He was an Air Force public affairs officer before and when he left the Air Force, he came and joined public affairs at NASA. People nicknamed me, he was apparently a captain in the Air Force. Everyone would say Captain Rob, and
There's a whoop. No, wrong. I did the wrong thing,
That's
Marty. There we go.
and there's just another view looking from behind that desk there where those ladies were. There was some more people there. So this must be closer to launch because there's now
Wide open, nothing in the middle
Right.
and stuff.
No
Kinda had to be
no
kind of
hallways,
interesting.
no hallways.
Not much privacy either, probably.
Now the one door down there toward the end of the wall, it has a black thing on the door where you could put messages. That was the door that led into the photo room at that time. And in there, that was run by, when we first started, Joanne Matty, and then after her was Margaret Persinger. I don't remember if Margaret worked in the dome at all. Mark, do you remember if she did? Was or just Joanne?
I see the British flag up there, Swiss flag. Looks like so they had national flags hanging up there.
Right, and that's where you would go and order and get photographs, and they were in there the same way that Les Gaver set up the operation in Washington. Big. Well, they didn't have the big things because NASA in Washington was dealing with photos all through the agency, where down here they were just dealing with photographs that were shot at Kennedy.
Well, we get into the 21st century.
And that moves us to where we're at currently today. And this is built directly on the footprint of where the dome was. So when the dome was taken down, this was built. It's a very, very modern place. Very, as you'll see.
Center there.
That's the... That again would go back to the query desk.
The inquiry desk.
Right, and you just see how things have changed. We don't see any rotary phones hanging around. We don't.
Right. Yeah.
Like here,
a lot of laptops.
Look, no typewriters, laptops, no dial phones, cell phones.
No ashtrays.
No ashtrays.
Still got the Coke there. We've got Doug Forrest is watching.
Hi, Doug.
Excellent artist. Gary
you're
Jarrell.
Gary.
Gary's up there in South Carolina. And William Whiting.
William.
Yep. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you again. Can't thank you enough.
Yeah, we appreciated it. Really a great spot to watch a launch or anything around here. We got Jimmy Brown watching. Thank you, Jimmy.
Jimmy, how you doing?
You know Jimmy?
I do know Jimmy. My brother Mark's here too, Jimmy.
How about read the rest of the names there? Dave Stangy's
we
up
have
in
Dave
Michigan.
Stangy with us today, Larry Putzker, Steve Hammer, and Chris Feely is joining us.
All right.
So, hi, Steve Hammer. I wanted to say hi to you there.
Thank you all for staying curious today.
Yes, thank you.
Not individual desks are in abundance. I mean, you got well, the way it's gone is just lay out a big old long bar table kind of.
You can reserve a spot there.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, you can have your own.
The worldwide media, though.
Yep, there we
people
go.
from all over the world. How interesting is that? That you're meeting people from Germany and Australia and so forth. And then in the shuttle era, you would see them again 3 or 4 months later.
I see people at shuttle, right up through shuttle, that I saw at Apollo 16, 15, 16. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then this last one here, that's the auditorium. Now, where they have all the news conferences and things like that. That's like the dark room that we saw on the second floor of the original news center in Cocoa Beach that had the stage lit, or the podium lit, but you couldn't really see the people there that well. Now the whole room is lit up. No more little old-fashioned TV monitors. You have high-definition monitors up all through the place, high-def TV. Those views of the launch pad the other night from the pad cameras for the Artemis were amazing.
Yes, they were. Particularly the overhead picture looking down.
I'll be anxious to talk to Steve Nolte about that. He's a big video guy. He's in the video, I think, even more than still photography, and I remember him saying for the first attempts how impressed he was with the cameras.
Yep. Well, awesome little trip down memory lane there of the press sites there. I love seeing how things have evolved. The only thing that's not changed is, of course, the passion that you all have for your craft.
Right.
Though it's changed from film to digital, it's still a kind of a game of one-upsmanship, isn't it, sometimes? Talk about that kind of competitiveness among friendly rivals of different photo outlets.
Well, you want to get a shot that you could claim is exclusive, but you don't want to do it at the expense of someone else. You don't want to go out there and accidentally bump into someone's camera, or you want to treat everyone with respect, and that's how you maintain some of these relationships over the years. But your job is still to get the photographs that you were either assigned to get, or if you're the guy in charge, want to get, and follow the rules and go about that, and 9 times out of 10 you'll succeed.
Well, that's right. After all, when you're there paid to be there, there's a hole in that magazine, whether it be Aviation Week or Ad Astra or whatever, that they want to put your picture in there, and that in itself puts pressure, kind of pressure that people in different jobs don't experience, do they?
No. No. My job, my main function through Shuttle was primarily coordinating and making sure that the remote cameras, that was when the remote cameras were set up, the bulk of my work was done. I enjoyed watching the launch and photographing the launches. In fact, the other night with the Artemis, other than pushing the button to start the camera, that's the first time that I ever watched a launch with a pair of binoculars.
Wow, interesting. Well, and how'd you feel about that?
Pretty good.
Did you?
Yeah, until I found out the camera wasn't running as fast as I thought it would be. But, that's life.
Yes, well, there's always always something in a camera or a situation like this that can go wrong. That's why you're like a Boy Scout. You're prepared, always prepared to do whatever you have to do to get that picture. Tom, we've of course always enjoyed having you here. Is there something you wanted to share that we hadn't asked you about?
No, I think we've covered it all.
Well, good. Well, I've done my job. We got a little birthday that we want to, astronaut birthday quickly, of a special friend of the American Space Museum. Happy 78th birthday to John David Bartow. J.D. Bartow, shown here in our shuttle gallery a couple months ago. He was born in Abington, Pennsylvania, not too far from Lancaster, I understand. Or
I think Abington is, if I'm not mistaken, it's near Philadelphia. Don't hold me to that, but I think it's in the greater Philadelphia area.
Well, J.D. was born in Abington, Pennsylvania, November 17, 1944. He was the first civilian employee of the U.S. Navy to fly aboard a shuttle. In July 85 for 8 days. This was STS-51F, Space Lab 2, and he had a lot of fun up there. We did an interview with JD and Mikey Haddad a couple months ago. Look that up on our YouTube channel there and watch that. And we hope to have JD Bartow back again. Dr. Bartow, happy 78th birthday to you, sir. So, we have had a great week here at the Space Museum, just so full of energy. Our friends like the Usciaks here. We got Daniel DeYoung here, our aviation pilot. He may have flown you around the country. We appreciate you being here, Daniel. And, of course, we appreciate Marty Winkle, our faithful volunteer running the Streamlabs there. Marty, anything to take care of before we tell everybody goodbye?
Nope, we're good here.
All right. Well, a fun day today at the American Space Museum. As always, thank you, Tom Usciak.
Thank you
for what you do for our museum. After all, he and his brother have bequested the museum their inventory of their photography for us to use. And so we're looking forward to doing some projects together over the years with that. So, well, on behalf of our whole team here, led by Karan, Conklin, our executive director, I'm MarQ Marquette, saying we can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.